Magic Conj, will I ever get to meet Tom Kenny?
Maybe someday.
Oh, so you're saying there's a chance. Okay. Should I tell fans of the show how they can support us?
Yes.
Goofy Goobers, supporting the show is shockingly easier than catching a blue jellyfish. Right from our anchor page, anchor.fm/SpongePod, you can find links to all of our social media and a support button if you happen to have a few extra clams. Also follow us on mixer.com/SpongePodSquareCast, where it's not only the official home to our sister show, Video Bob Game Pants, it's also where I stream live drawings of various Nickelodeon characters and host the opportunity for commissions and giveaways. Lastly, the official merchandise store is now open at redbubble.com/people/SpongePod, where various designs will be uploaded inspired by our show, including our official logo, which is now available on a multitude of products like t-shirts, stickers, duvet covers, and even a shower curtain. This is a podcast by a fan for fans and will always be fan-driven. Any way you see fit on supporting our show is much appreciated. Thank you and enjoy. Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to another episode of I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast, where I am welcoming back a special guest, Mr. Nate Ferreira. Specifically this episode, this is a big deal. I recorded a lot out of order because I saved this episode for you.
How special?
Yeah. Out of, just to not build it up, I would say most SpongeBob fans of my age would probably say this is their favorite episode. And there's actually some statistics to back this up. In 2006, this was voted number 29 in a Best Day Ever event on Nickelodeon. But 3 years later, SpongeBob, this episode was voted number 1 on Nick.com as a favorite episode of all time, and included, and also in Germany in 2012 was voted number 1 during a Top 100 weekend. So this is a big deal right here. This episode.
All right, not to hype it up too much.
Right.
Great, thanks.
Because you could turn around and go, that was the worst.
Oh, I plan to.
Animation I've ever seen. But last time I had you on, it was very early in making this show, and it's evolved a little bit. I want to talk to you just a bit about nostalgia.
All right.
It fuels a lot of this generation that I grew up with, but I also feel like it's not specific to my generation. I think any person growing up, there's always little things that they get attached to, but specifically when it comes to media, when you think back to your childhood, what is the earliest book or TV show or movie? Like, what's that first thing that pops into your head?
I think for me, a couple things pop into my head, and yeah, a movie and a TV show stand out the most to me. The movie is E.T.
Okay.
The TV show is Knight Rider.
With the Hoff.
Yeah, with David Hasselhoff.
Yeah,
and
he is well respected on this show.
And Mr. Feeney as a talking car.
Wait, hold on. The car was Mr. Feeney?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I never knew that.
Yeah.
What? Wow. And that's before Boy Meets World. So
absolutely.
Yeah. That'd be great if they were we got to get a voice for the car. You know what? Get that teacher on Boy Meets World. If it was afterwards.
Yeah. But, I mean, to your point though, that a lot of people are like, "Oh, millennials are all about nostalgia." The Stranger Things was so specifically modeled on E.T. over everything else.
Oh yeah.
That
like if you took E.T. and the Goonies and put it in a blender.
Yeah. But to the point that they specifically had Millie Bobby Brown watch E.T. and told her, "You are E.T."
Yeah.
And some of the costuming choices. And anyway, the point is, yeah, you're right that nostalgia plays a factor in other things, because millennials weren't nostalgic for E.T., and millennials aren't the only ones that fell in love with that first season of Stranger Things.
Right. Well, I think I think with each, obviously with a certain generation, we were more exposed to things on screens than previous generations. Like
Yep.
every generation, there's more channels, there's more stuff going on television. Therefore, there's more things for you to attach
Yep.
to your childhood. When before, people who grew up even before television, they're nostalgic.
I'm
It's
nostalgic for that game where we
hit the
we made a hoop go down the street by hitting it with a stick.
even like radio programs like Buck
Yep.
Rogers.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and Little Orphan Annie, which
Yep.
I only thought of because of Christmas Story. But Ralphie in that movie would grow up probably like, oh, anytime he ever heard Annie or whatever, like, oh, I remember that as a kid, that radio program. So
Yeah. And Star Wars itself, which is experiencing yet another revival in the last few years with Disney's money, that itself was based on Flash Gordon largely, which was very old. What are we talking? 20s?
yeah, oh yeah,
1920s.
the old cereals.
Not right now. So yeah, I want some cereal now.
Some Star Wars cereal, or do you want some Buck Rogers cereal that hasn't been opened in 70 years?
I'm not sure.
What if I told you if you ate that cereal, you would then go to the 21st century?
I think I would like that because I am very, very, very bored right now in my somewhat self-imposed quarantine.
Yeah. Well, this is these kind of shows like SpongeBob and long running shows like Friends or anything that you liked can be perfectly acceptable when you're quarantining yourself during a epidemic, which, yes, as of this recording, we are like in the beginning of the initial 2-week, hey, everyone kind of shut down and don't do anything.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's going to be a lot more than 2 weeks actually,
Yeah,
but minimum 2 weeks.
absolutely. So the episode we're going to be watching today has to do with pizza.
All right.
Now, currently in 2020, we have a wide variety of pizza places. When you were younger, what was your pizza place of choice?
Well, when I was like single digits,
Yeah, I mean,
a child.
do you have? What's your earliest thought? I mean, even if you're a teenager, what's your earliest thought of pizza loyalty?
Pizza loyalty.
Yeah.
As a child, well, of course, I'm not sure that I ever really got on the. I'm not sure Chuck E. Cheese was around when I was a little kid.
It probably would have been Showbiz Pizza Place.
Maybe. I don't know that Showbiz was around here, but maybe it was. But no, I remember Pizza Hut used to be very much in the style of what you only see now as like Italian, like family-owned Italian restaurants. Like the Pizza Huts that I went to as a kid, it was like a lot of wood interior, a lot of the red and white checkered tablecloths,
Yeah,
and
you got the salad bar.
and you go and sit down with your family and you'd order a pizza.
Because
And
Pizza Hut was more of a dine-in restaurant, but
Yeah.
as opposed to just being
as-
delivery.
Yeah. So I remember Pizza Hut. I think that's actually right here in town. The one I'm thinking of. I remember going to Enfield Pizza Hut a lot. I think it's now. I think that's where TGI Fridays is now. Just for your own personal edification.
Absolutely. You might be right. I think there was the Pizza Hut that was right there. I definitely didn't dine in at Pizza Hut a ton.
Yeah.
But because they dropped almost off the face of the planet. I mean, they're still
Mhm.
known, but the fact that you think they maybe didn't take on delivery as much as they should have is a part of their downfall.
I think so. I think they were kind of late to the game when Domino's was really ramping it up.
Yeah.
They always did delivery as far as I know, but the Pizza Hut Express, which I don't know that they even use that anymore, but there was a time when if it was not a family style sit down restaurant, but it was owned by Pizza Hut, it was a Pizza Hut Express, and there really weren't any tables. That was the special Pizza Hut where you could go in and take out a pizza, or you could have them deliver. But
I mean, it's pretty much like what Domino's look like now.
Yeah.
Except for Domino's will have 2 tables at most in their
yeah,
building, like in case you don't want to go home and eat this pizza. Sure, sit there and eat it.
but we're not going to be happy about it.
No, we're just gonna stare at you and toss Parmesan cheese in your direction. At least that's what happens to every Domino's I've ever sat into. Yeah, because pizza, I mean, at least around here, I'm sure this is the case if there's anyone else listening to this that happens to be a part of a Facebook group that is about their town. But I know the one in our town, if you dare, the worst thing to do on that Facebook group is to ask people, where should I get pizza delivered? Because in Enfield, Connecticut, there are about, I would say, 8 options for pizza, and everybody, it's a very tribal thing. It's very much like if you find your place, that is your pizza place, and every other place stinks or you've never had it before.
Yeah.
I pretty much sum it up to that. I doubt there's people in town who have tried every single place. I'm sure there's a few, but
and also some of the places, some pizza places just are not consistent. I'll lock onto one for a little while because I had an exceptionally good pizza, and so often it's they never live up to that again.
Right.
And
At least with Domino's, even if it's like 75%, you're always getting that 75%.
I don't even think it's 75%. I think Domino's is garbage, but you know it's going to be garbage.
Right.
And also after a certain amount of time, or after a certain point in the night, they're the only one. They're the only people you're going to get delivered to your door.
Yeah, they certainly hit that sweet spot at a certain point in time.
They're the Taco Bell of garbage pizza brought to your door.
Except for, I don't think you can order Taco Bell on as many devices as you can with Domino's. And kudos to them. They really pushed what you can do with technology and ordering pizza. Like, I think there's shoes now that you can press a button on your shoes and it'll order a pizza to your house.
Yeah, just tweet the pizza emoji to them, and
they're like,
okay,
right,
your standard order is on its way.
It's on its way.
And like the fact that you know every step of the way. Anyway, back to your little cartoon.
Yeah, my little cartoon. The episode I'm going to show you today is called Pizza Delivery. It aired August 14th, 1999. It is the first episode of episode 5, super early on into the first season of SpongeBob.
All right.
And to hit it this good, I believe, in comedic value and writing is monumental. And to not give the writer, I'm going to give the writers credit. Sherm Cohen, Aaron Springer, and Peter Burns wrote this episode of SpongeBob.
Pete Burns?
Pete Burns.
No, that's Pete Byrne, right?
I think so. No, it's not the same Burns you're thinking of. All right, so we'll be right back after viewing that episode.
Bye-bye.
2,000 years later.
All right, that was a wonderful exploration into the world of pizza delivery. If you're joining us, you can play the episode right now. As usual, we are watching this from Amazon Prime, but of course, if you have any of the season sets, it, of course, is going to be on there. So, Nate, pizza delivery, first thoughts, go.
Definitely a great episode. I definitely don't need to say definitely so many times in one sentence.
You remind me of the little boy that was on the news where he was. What was the word he kept using?
Apparently, I love Mr. Krabs' power to, with his bear claws, reshape these burgers into a pizza.
I thought you were going with his power to just change the menu on the whim. Like,
yeah.
Oh wait, you're gonna pay us? Yeah, we serve Chinese food. And yeah, we'll have somebody deliver it for you.
Where'd he come up with the pizza box though?
I don't know. I think he was able to shape the plate there. Have you ever had any sort of delivery job other than like a paper route? Like, have you ever had to deliver food?
No, my first job ever, I don't think it was even legal. I was 14 years old. A new Chinese restaurant opened up near my house, and as I was walking out of the grocery store, a 5-year-old girl came running up and being like, "Hey, I talked to that guy over there, and he doesn't want a job, but do you want a job?" And I'm like, "You're a 5-year-old girl." And she dragged me in, and her parents, who didn't speak any English whatsoever,
But she spoke it pretty well.
she spoke English very well for a 5-year-old, and she spoke whatever language. They were Chinese, but I don't know which language they spoke. There's a lot of dialects.
It's actually fairly close. Just and I just want to point out, just because it's coming up right there, when the English transformed into some sort of Asian
Yep.
writing, it's actually Korean, and that is the actual Korean spelling of both forward and reverse.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. So this 5-year-old roped you in.
Yeah. Anyway, I just ended up being the only. I was the person answering the phones for this Chinese food place,
Oh, okay.
and I lost the job the first night because I didn't get any kind of training from these people that didn't speak English. They just like stuck me in front of a phone. And
Was there even a talk on pay, or were they just like plopped you in front of a phone, like, here you go?
my dad was with me when I first was offered the job, and he was like, "What'll it pay?" And they're like $4 an hour, and he was like, "Oh," and I came to realize that was far below minimum wage for the time. But I didn't know any better at 14.
No, and I mean,
I didn't get any pay whatsoever aside from a large plate of pork fried rice that I could eat while answering the phones.
and how long were you there for?
The one day I was like told to go home and not to come back. When the guy went out for delivery. Now here's the thing: you don't need to speak English to know that when your phone person answers the phone, tells you an order, and hands you all the information on a piece of paper, that there's no address on that. I didn't. They were like,
Oh, yeah,
it's the Mark Twain house. And I was like, oh, okay. Everyone knows that. And didn't think this guy didn't. And he just was like driving all over town.
Trying to deliver this food.
Yeah, he left. He didn't have an address, and he drove away, and he got halfway across town, and then he called me and was like, it's like, what address?
Now that is just a memory you are bringing up, not any current.
Yeah, sure.
I love that the truck driver thinks there's a break dancer in the middle of the road and speeds up and is not going to stop at all. And of course, I just the fact that after this tornado event happens, they land and Squidward's freaking out about not knowing where the road are. It seems like it seems like wherever they currently are, there's no road
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're already off road.
This reminds me of that time that Evan got blown up into the air holding a theater flat.
Oh my goodness. You just unlocked a old memory of mine. Yes, if you take a human being that doesn't weigh that much and give them a giant stage flat,
A Broadway style flat, which is very light. It's
And
basically
large.
a sail
It's like-
on a frame. It's canvas.
like 13 feet, right?
Well, that one was about 10 feet. Its standard is 4x8 because that's a standard size for things.
And then put them outside on a really windy day. You're going to see some action.
I love it's wildly irresponsible, in my opinion, to put the idea in kids' heads that Moss points towards civilization, not toward like a direction.
Yeah,
But whatever. It's
SpongeBob
funny.
bringing up constantly in this episode all of his pioneer knowledge.
Yeah, and I've of course have heard the rock thing.
You've seen
from
that
later.
meme. There's a lot of memed moments in this episode. I also love that twice Squidward calls him Jethro,
Yes.
which is a nod to the Beverly Hillbillies. SpongeBob's apparent square butt cheeks.
Yes, individual square butt cheeks.
That was always, I mean, as a kid when I was 8 years old watching this, that moment, of course, made me howl in laughter.
Yeah.
But as I grew older, this part of the song made me laugh.
I love that this at this point in the series, they just call each other Squid and Sponge.
Yeah, and like I said, it's super. I think this is the 10th overall episode of the show, so by then they just started shortening it. This is also the first episode where Squidward shows any sort of he's
sympathy.
nice to SpongeBob.
Yeah.
In this episode more than any other.
Which means once. One time.
It happens very rarely. Eating coral. Now, I know that I feel like I've seen videos before of people cooking coral. Or at least some, because there's just so many variations of it. I think there may be some edible kinds.
I have no idea, but I do know that coral reefs are made from the I think living coral has an exoskeleton, if I'm not mistaken. But like a coral reef is just bone, pretty much. And so I don't know about eating coral. And generally, if you find coral, it's not going to be, only an outer layer of it will be living.
Right.
You looking this up now?
Well, that's what we do here. Do humans eat coral? Yes, some people do eat coral. Coral calcium seems to be touted recently by certain health food junkies. They tout it as beneficial, especially for arthritis and osteoporosis. It also seems more trendy than the older oyster shell calcium. As far as I've been able to find, there are not health benefits associated with coral calcium. In fact, oyster shell calcium may be worse for you than plain old Tums because oysters and corals don't dissolve quickly. Their calcium is not available for absorption. Almost the entire supplement will go through your feces.
Great. So what I was saying about it being bone is true.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, in this thread, someone goes, "Squidward once ate coral." Like literally 2 sections under. Like, all right. I can see. There's a common train of thought, and of course, SpongeBob finds a massive Dwayne Johnson.
This may be the most famous moment, most memed moment from SpongeBob, actually, or at least the most referenced. I've seen so many things where the pioneers would ride these babies for miles.
Use that. Oh, that's so funny that you actually. Yep, because that has been that part. I know when SpongeBob's dancing with his hat and Squidward with the spoons has been memed before. And of course, this customer had such an effect on me as a kid. I never forgot the Diet Dr. Kelp. And true story, about 6 months ago, I went into a box lunch, which for anyone out there who doesn't know, I mean, box lunch is very in select cities and areas of the country, but they're basically they're the sister store to Hot Topic, and Hot Topic is very dark and moody and still kind of nerdy, but box lunch is super bright and takes all of those nerdy things and just almost everything in their store is exclusive. And their Nickelodeon section is packed with deep cut references to shows. And so 6 months ago, I went to a box lunch and they had a red shirt and I picked it up and it was Diet Dr. Kelp, like in the style of Coca-Cola, like as a shirt. And I'm like, one line in an episode of SpongeBob from 20 years ago is on a t-shirt. It's just official too, which is insane. Because that's something you would think would be a fan recreation, which I'm sure if you go to Redbubble and search Diet Dr. Kelp, there's probably 100 different logos for it.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that fish's belly was hairy, which bothers me on so many levels. And here's SpongeBob, is Squidward being nice to SpongeBob, and of course the final joke being the fact that they were literally. The reference was right around the corner, but they were across the street to that guy.
Fantastic.
And there we go. So yeah, that was pizza delivery. All in all, I mean, for me personally, it's not my number one favorite, but it certainly is in top 10 just because of the quotes, and just how fun of an episode it is when you can just take SpongeBob and Squidward out of the element, out of their usual space, and see them interact. Because that's comedy at its core when you can take opposite characteristics and just see how they mesh together in certain situations.
Yeah.
It reminds me of how the old Mighty Boosh radio shows were. I mean, the TV show is funny, but when they were on just doing audio,
Yep.
that's what it needed, was two characters who shouldn't be getting along, having to be in situations.
Right.
Like, we're stuck in the Antarctic. What happens there?
Yeah.
So yeah, anything you'd like to plug before we head off?
No.
All right. Hey, that's fine. Less things I have to write about in the description. So just as we end, I'd like you to lead us out with with your best pirate impression, saying "Ahoy, mateys," or saying whatever you'd like.
Gross.
Excellent.